to talk about some of the enormously important crises facing our country today. I'm just delighted to have good friends here, people who have been fighting for the working class of this country for years and are helping to lead this effort in this terrible Trump shutdown. Let me put where we're in a context, very briefly, before we get to discussing some of the issues. Why is there a shutdown? The answer is pretty simple. In the House of Representatives, a majority can pass a budget. In the United States Senate, you need 60 votes. And what that traditionally has meant, and why you got 60 votes, it requires bipartisan negotiations, discussion. They don't have the votes, they got 53 votes, Democratic caucus 47. You need to talk. For the first time that anyone can remember, what the Republicans are saying, we're not talking. It's our way or the highway. Take it or leave it. That's it. No discussion. Well, that doesn't work for us. It doesn't work for the American people. And one of the key issues out there, what they don't want to talk about, is that if we were to just tomorrow go along with the Republican proposal, this is what happens to you. 15 million of you are going to lose your health insurance. The health insurance system in America, as everybody knows, is broken today. 15 more million people will lose their health insurance. Tens of thousands will die because they can't get to a doctor, can't afford prescription drugs. That's not all. Under what the Republicans are pushing, over 20 million people will see their health insurance premiums double. Yeah, you heard that right. Double. You're already paying by far the highest prices in the world for health care. Well, think about a doubling of premiums, what that means. Well, we sent out a study just the other day, asked people to say, what does that mean? And the stories that we got back were heartbreaking. Not surprising, but heartbreaking. If you are seriously ill now, and you lose your health care, what do you think happens to you? You die. That's what people are saying. If your family is barely hanging on economically now, and you got to pay a doubling in your premiums, what do you think happens to you? You can't afford rent. Maybe you're homeless. Can't afford to buy decent food for your kids. That's the reality that we're in right now. That is what this shutdown is about. But I want to, after we talk about healthcare, I want to get into another issue. I want to start later on with Jeff Berkeley of Oregon. I think everybody knows this country is rapidly, frighteningly moving into an authoritarian society. I know you guys know this, a few hours ago, Trump announced that he wants to arrest the governor of Illinois and the mayor of Chicago. This is really insane stuff. All right, that's my take. Elizabeth, take it from there. What are you hearing?
So look, let's stick with healthcare to start with, because that's the right place to be. When we talk about what the Republicans want to do, it's not just a little bit. It's about health insurance premiums, you bet, touching people all over this country. But it's also about pushing old people out of nursing homes.
Right.
It's about telling newborn babies and their mamas, you got no health care. Good luck to you. You got to figure out a way to manage this. It's about saying to people who have disabilities and they've got to rely on that home health aide, or they've got a motorized wheelchair. Those are paid for by the federal Medicaid program. And these guys want to come in with a chainsaw. And they just want to say, no. They want to cut that help to 10 million people is the best estimate. 10 million people who will still get sick.
Right.
Who still need care. Who's the grandmas with dementia who still need to be somewhere. They just want to take all of that away and push it back on families. So I don't know.
Enormously important point. It's not just individuals. It's the ripple effect of this thing. Tina Smith, Minnesota. What's going on there?
Well, as we're having this conversation, I'm thinking about this woman who I talked with this weekend when I was home. Okay, so she's a young woman. She got her health insurance through her family until she turned 26, thanks to the Affordable Care Act. And now she's a child care provider. She makes about $40,000 a year. She cannot afford this huge insurance premium increase that she is staring at. It's going to be hundreds of dollars a month, and she can't afford it. Okay, so she's young and she's, healthy for now, and so she's probably going to make the decision of not getting any health insurance at all. And so think about what that means. So first of all, for her, it means she's probably not going to be able to start a family like she wants to right away, because she can't afford it. But if she's not buying health insurance, then if she gets really sick, she's going to the emergency room. And that's going to cost all of us, right? It's not only is it immoral that she doesn't have access to health care, which should be a right and not a privilege, but it has a ripple effect on the whole community. And I bet everybody here is hearing some version of that story in your own states, because it's so common. And it's why people are so pissed off about this, because they can see that it affects everyone.
Chris Van Hollen, Maryland.
Well, they showed us who they would fight for when they passed the so-called big, beautiful bill. We all worked very hard to stop it, but they ran it through. And I think all of us know that that was beautiful if you're a billionaire or a very rich person. For everybody else, it stunk. I mean, they cut Medicaid. That will throw 15 million plus people off of health insurance. It will slam nursing home care, lead to closures of rural hospitals. They cut food nutrition programs. But of course, they extended permanently tax cuts for the billionaire and the rich. The one tax cut that they let lapse is the one that allows middle-class families to afford their health insurance.
You think that was
That's
just
the
an
one
oversight,
tax cut
Chris?
they decided
You think that was
to
just a
let die.
mistake on their part?
Just die. And so they left in place this ticking time bomb, which is going to go off completely and explode at the end of the year, and we're going to see these rising healthcare costs. They will impact every American at the end of the day. And it won't be just the end of the year. In Maryland, and I know all of our states, people are getting their notices right now as to what the increase will be. And in Maryland, we just, have been looking at the impact of this. If you look at the eastern shore of Maryland, it's a pretty rural area, and you take a couple that makes $90,000 a year, it turns out that for some of these plans that they've got right now, they're going to see a more than doubling of the premium. So here's a couple, $90,000 a year, pay more than double their current monthly premium. Right now they pay $1,000. It's over $1,100 more per month. So a plan that cost $641 right now will go per month. Will now go to $1,762 per month. That's almost three times. That's the impact of what they're doing. And we want to keep the government open. We don't want to give Donald Trump a blank check for his lawless activities. And we want to make sure we address these rising prices and costs, including
That's what we're
this
fighting
one
for.
right here.
That's
And
what we're
so
fighting
that's
for.
what this is about.
Peter Welch, Vermont.
Well, there's another element here that makes me sad. I'm really outraged at taking away people's health care, all the things that you talked about. But there has been an abdication of accepting a responsibility our Senate Republican colleagues have to act like an independent branch of government. These cuts, they're going to hurt folks who voted for Trump. They're going to hurt folks who didn't vote for him. This is all about suffering that's going to be inflicted on families, regardless of what their political orientation is. And I talk to my Republican colleagues, and I know you do, and Tina and Elizabeth, we're on the Finance Committee where we have some authority and ability to change this. They get it. Because all these premiums that you're talking about, they're going to afflict the families they represent. So they get it. And then you ask them, well, let's change it. They got to wait for Trump. They got to get permission from Trump. And what I look at them, I say, wait a minute. Aren't we like independent United States senators? Don't we have the capacity to decide what we think is right? Which, of course, we do. But they need a permission slip from the president. And that's the lament I have, because we're talking about trying to protect families, not trying to get some political edge. So anyway, really astonishing.
Thanks, Peter. Jeff Berkeley from Oregon.
Well, and it really strikes me, Peter, what you're saying is that some of them individually, yes, are coming in saying, we know this is going to hurt our constituents back home. And in fact, 75% of the folks who have accessed these enhanced tax credits that have made insurance affordable are in states that Trump won.
Right.
And so this is not Democrats advocating because our blue states are the ones most hurt. We're advocating because families across America are hurt. I think about the stats for my state, and individual stories are powerful, and this individual who's 32 years old, earns $35,000 a year, and roughly his health care premiums will double. And, well, doubling? I mean, we get upset at 3% or 5% inflation. This is 100% inflation. And Chris's, your example was 300% inflation. And as Bernie mentioned, well, if I can buy the health care, maybe I can't buy something that's important for quality food for my children, or maybe I can't pay my rent. In other words, pressing families to the wall. And in my state, 110,000 people are affected by buying buying health insurance on the exchange with these tax credits. And the expected average is $1,300 a person up. The expected percentage average is less than the national average, which is confusing to me as to why, but about 68%, projected 68%, versus a national doubling of 100 to 114%. And I'm just like, okay, so individuals are coming to us and saying, across the aisle, and saying, we're hurt, and, well, can you please actually engage and have your leadership engage in dialogue?
Yeah.
Because this is the way that we resolve things. Now, the point, Peter, you were making, that they feel like they have to get a permission slip. There are 3 factors that lead to authoritarian control. And this is tied, I mean, if you have authoritarian control, ordinary families get hurt. You've never seen an authoritarian force that provides great health insurance or health system to their citizens. And one of it's a rubber stamp Congress. And what you're describing is the rubber stamp Congress. And the second is a Supreme Court that gives more power to the executive, and we have that. And the third is an aggressive authoritarian president, and we have that. But how can we interrupt that? How can we interrupt that? We can interrupt it by having our colleagues say, hey, we're tired of the attack on due process and free speech and free assembly and weaponizing the judicial department against political enemies and sending military into the city. No, we took an oath to the Constitution. If we can get our colleagues to say they've had enough and remember that they're fighting for democracy, we will fix this healthcare problem.
Right.
Because they won't ask for that permission slip anymore.
Exactly.
Good point. Chris Murphy, Connecticut.
So, Bernie, you said something that's really important, that this is unprecedented, right? We've never been in a situation like this where the Republicans are essentially boycotting negotiations.
Right.
It's even crazier than that. The House of Representatives isn't even here. Like, they're not in session. The government is shut down, and the House of Representatives, the Republican Speaker, has sent the House home for 3 weeks, unplanned.
4.
Four.
Did you hear? Next week they're out
too.
as well.
So
4
a
months in a row.
month recess. This never happens, and so you have to ask yourself why. Why are they working so hard to avoid sitting at the table and talking about something that's pretty simple? Bernie, you said it. We're not asking for the entire healthcare system to be fixed. We're just saying, don't screw it up even worse. Don't raise people's premiums by 100%, 300%, while the cost of everything else is going up. They won't even talk about that because these healthcare cuts to families are essential for their number one priority. Tax cuts for corporations and billionaires. The way that they pay for this big new tax cut for billionaires and corporations is to cut your healthcare. It's just a transfer of wealth from middle class families to the super rich. Like if you're a really rich family in Connecticut, you're getting a new tax cut of $270,000 paid for by people's healthcare going up who are making $50,000 a year. So it's true that we're in we're now day 5, 6, 7 of the shutdown, and we're having no negotiations because Republicans are boycotting Washington because they can't stand the idea of having to give up on their plan to use government to enrich their friends.
Yeah.
Ed Markey, Massachusetts.
No, thank you. Just to follow on what Chris is saying. So there's 220 Republicans right now, and they're in a witness protection program. Somewhere in America. We don't know where they are. We want to talk to them about the health care of every American family, but we can't find them. And there's a reason why we can't find them. Because it's all that you really have to know is in Godfather Part 1. They've all been given an offer they can't refuse by Donald Trump. They voted for the bill to slash all these programs, slash Medicaid, slash the Affordable Care Act, NIH, all these programs. And they voted that way because they lose their seat. That's what happened to Senator Tillis in North Carolina. He just stood up. 48 hours later, he couldn't run for re-election. So it all comes from the Trump White House. They want these cuts for, as Chris said, the payoff for their billionaire buddies. These are tax cuts for them. All this health money, all the funding for every family. Ralph Waldo Emerson, the great Massachusetts poet, he once said that health is the first wealth. And it's being looted. It's being looted by Trump, being looted by the Republicans in the House and the Senate in order to pay for those tax breaks. Because they've always harbored an ancient animosity towards Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act. Because they all voted against them, the Republicans. They never wanted these programs in the first place. And so all we're saying is, come to the table. Let's talk.
Yeah.
We have a crisis coming up on November 1st. You got 2 weeks to show up here, please, so we can talk to you. Otherwise, we're going to be in a full-blown healthcare catastrophe crisis for the whole country. And right now, as Elizabeth just said, for 4 weeks they're going on vacation somewhere. We don't
Paid
know.
vacation.
Witness protection program.
Bahamas or
Huh?
Bahamas maybe? or-
Yeah, Bahamas. We don't know where they are, but we know where American families are. They're right at their kitchen table. Their electricity prices are going up. Their food prices are going up. Their healthcare premiums are going up, and the Republican Party cannot be found. And so that's why this is so important. What you're doing, Bernie, having this as a way in which we can put out an all-point bulletin for the American people to find these Republicans and demand that they come back to Washington to talk about the health care for their families.
Thanks.
And of course, if they come back, they'll have enough votes in the House to require the Trump administration to discharge the Epstein files. It's very clear they're much more interested in keeping them locked up than opening the federal government. Let's put
I
it
want
that
to
way.
move on, but before we do, let me just summarize, pick up on something that Ed said. The system right now is in really bad shape. We don't have to explain to anybody in America that the current healthcare system is broken. I fear very much, as the ranking member of the Health Education Labor Committee, that literally, with all that we've talked about, this could take the system over the brink.
Right.
It could collapse. It could collapse. So what we're fighting for is for millions and millions of families. And by the way, let's make it clear, we are all progressive types. It's not just progressives who feel this way. There's a poll that came out from the Kaiser Family Foundation. 78% of Americans, including 59% of Republicans, want to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits.
Right.
Polling numbers are almost as high to preserve Medicaid. That's what the American people want, and that's why these guys have disappeared.
Bernie, before we leave this subject, can I just go back to something Tina was talking about insurance? And talking about people making the decision, how many people will just say, I can't do this. You're a guy. I mean, are you kidding? A family that goes, what'd you say, from $600 to $1,700? Very few people at that income level have an extra $1,100 that they can put in. Just for a second, I want to talk about the death spiral. And that is when a whole bunch of people collectively say, good grief, on these
They just opt out.
prices.
Yeah.
Do it.
A bunch of people opt out, and we worry about people who then have no health insurance. But I want to, just for a second, think about what happens to the people who are left.
Yeah.
I was talking with someone yesterday who has a very serious condition, and she said her treatments cost $120,000
Wow.
regularly.
Right.
And she said, I don't have any choice. I will spend every last nickel I've got on health insurance because I literally will not be able to purchase the drugs that keep me alive. So she was asking the question, who drops out? She doesn't drop out.
No, exactly.
But the healthiest people, or at least they perceive themselves as the healthiest people.
Healthy until you're not.
Healthy until you're not. The healthiest people drop out. If they get sick, they still go to the hospital for uncompensated care, right? That's going to load back into the system. But what happens to the remaining insurance pool? And it's a problem with this private insurance,
That's
right?
right.
Drives the cost up. And then let's go to the next round. price increases,
Right.
right? And this is what people are talking about. Some of the
That's right.
healthcare economic specialists are saying, we're talking about potentially a death spiral here
Right.
that brings down the entire payment system for healthcare in America. And there are some of us who want to rewrite healthcare and how it's paid for in America, but this is not the way.
This is not the
by
way
having
doing
an
it.
emergency where you burn the whole
Right.
damn thing down.
Yeah.
All right, I want to shift a moment to something I know concerns everybody in this room, and I think the vast majority of Americans, whether you're conservative, Republicans, progressives, independents, whatever you are. We got a president who does not believe in the Constitution of the United States, does not believe in the rule of law.
Right.
He's attacking virtually every institution in American society which maintains a democratic form of society, whether it is the media, suing the media, his friends are taking over the media, whether it is the court system, whether it's the universities, whether it's law systems. As I mentioned a moment ago, I mean, he today announced, insanely, he wants to arrest the governor of Illinois and the mayor of the city of Chicago. He is targeting one of our own colleagues, Senator Schiff from California, Letitia James, the Attorney General of New York.
Now Senator Blumenthal.
I didn't hear that. Senator
Yeah,
Blum?
Senator Blumenthal.
Yeah.
He's saying Senator Blumenthal should be investigated. So it just continues.
I mean,
Right.
you're really, this is really scary stuff. Yesterday at the Democratic Caucus, Jeff Merkley talked a little bit about what was going on in Portland, Oregon. Jeff, if you could just tell us what's going on there.
Sure, you bet. Let me turn the clock back to the year 2020, 5 years ago, in which Trump sent federal agents into Portland, and people were outraged that they were there, and it resulted in conflict that created a cycle of street demonstrations and for months. Well, Portland recovered from that. And Portland's been a very peaceful place. It's cut its murder rate in half, the best of the 65 largest cities in America. It cut a 20% cut in its violent crime year over year. Well, that's progress. The downtown's starting to come back to life. But Trump remembers that he helped trigger violence in Portland, and he wants to do it again. So he proceeded to say, well, there's a war zone in Portland, so I need to federalize the Oregon National Guard. Well, the law only allows to federalize National Guard if there is an invasion or if there's a rebellion. An invasion is pretty well defined and understood as some country is on your borders and they're coming in. A rebellion is considered to be, by the conversations that were held at the time the law was created, to be a sizable group, well organized, well weaponized, that's trying to overthrow the government. So nothing like this exists in Portland. Have there been some scuffles and demonstrations over the months? Yes, but nothing out of the ordinary that the local police doesn't handle. But then he proceeds to say, Trump says, well, we can recreate the conditions of 2020. And so the first thing that happens is he does have Federal Protective Services that are outside the ICE building, and they proceed to assault peaceful protesters. As documented not by the major newspaper, the Oregonian, saying somebody said, but saying our reporters witnessed, our staff witnessed the assaults on peaceful protesters. And then Oregon Public Broadcasting observed something that was even more extraordinary, in which the federal agents decided to stage a fake riot.
Wow.
And they asked the protesters to back up 3 blocks, and they did. There was no physical interaction between them and the agents. And then the federal agents, with their line across, they had videographers behind them, professional videographers. And when they backed them up 3 blocks, they gave the command, and they threw down tear gas and pepper balls. And what was the
Flashbangs.
oh yeah, the flashbangs, and it sounds like gunfire going off. And so you see the smoke, and you hear what sounds like gunfire,
Looks like
and
chaos.
people are quickly. And so they film that, trying to say, "Oh look, there's a riot." This is a new level that our government, in kind of a wag the dog strategy, is creating a fake riot to try to sell the American people and the courts on the idea that there's a rebellion that has to be quelled.
Wow.
Well, our district judge said, no way, you can't federalize Oregon. Trump says, well, we're going to send in federalized agents from California and Texas. The federal judge, the district judge says, no, there's no condition here. It's the same issue. Can't come. So now we are seeing that Trump each day is trying to some way to accelerate this crisis. And Chicago was next on the list. And we're anticipating more federal agents will be sent, not National Guard, and Trump's saying, I may trigger the Insurrection Act. Well, the Insurrection Act basically is an exception to posse comitatus, which says you can't use our military against our own people. Long-standing protection. Military is to protect our country, not to be used by an authoritarian against our own people. But the exception is for a rebellion. And therefore, once again, Trump is going to try to demonstrate that there are circumstances, and here is the big concern. While the district judge in Oregon said, no way, we understand what a rebellion is, it's not here, other judges are in the habit of giving deference on security issues to the executive. And well, you got the commander-in-chief. If the commander-in-chief says there's an invasion, maybe we should defer to that. And we saw that with the judge in Chicago. We're concerned about this. We'll get to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court will say, yes, it's okay as long as the president says there's a rebellion or an invasion. And you hear the president using those words. He talked about invasion from within, setting the stage again for the... This is a red line because, yes, we've seen the attack on due process, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, our academic universities, our networks being attacked for what they put on the air. We've seen the retaliation coming out of the Department of Justice. But the idea of troops being sent in against American citizens peacefully protesting, this could secure the type of authoritarian state Trump wants to create far into the future, and it's why we have to do everything we can to resist it.
Jeff, thanks. Chris, I know you were on the floor yesterday talking about these issues.
Yeah, one of the things I worry is that, we only deal with the outrage of the day. And every day, especially in the last month, there's been a new outrage, a new assault on free speech, a new assault on the rule of law, on citizens' right to protest. But when you put it all together, right, this is where it looks like we are watching our democracy die, right? Because what he's doing is just raising the price for people to speak out against him.
Right.
If you speak out against him on TV, you'll get your show canceled. If you speak out against him in Congress, you're going to go to jail. If you speak out against him on a city street, well, the military is going to show up with tear gas and with helicopters. And we're naive to think that doesn't have an impact, that people don't start to say, you know what, I'm just going to stay inside. I'm not going to come out and protest. I'm not going to volunteer for an opposition candidate. This is actually how democracies disappear. And so when I think about what we're fighting for right now as we're talking about this next budget, yeah, we're fighting about people's health care. We're trying to make sure that folks don't go bankrupt this fall. But we're also asking for something even simpler, that the president just obey the law, right? That we write a budget in which the president actually has to implement the budget and not use the money we give him to suppress people's speech. So this moment feels kind of overwhelming sometimes because you've got these prices going up on people, you've got the suppression of democracy. But when you really think about it, what we're asking for, boy, it's not the moon. Just don't make people's health care worse and make sure that the president follows the law. But when you put all this together, Bernie, this is probably the most serious threat to American democracy, maybe since the Civil War, and it's not lost, right? He hasn't won yet. This is still in the people's hands to rise up and say peacefully but forcefully, we're not going to allow for this corruption of our democracy to happen. But the budget can say something about the president having to actually respect the law when he spends the money that we authorize.
Let me just jump in there. He is a schoolyard bully. Now, we were at a meeting yesterday, Pollster came. We throw this out. And what did he say about Democrats? What was the one word that the American people used?
We say that in public, is that right?
It said weak.
Weak.
That
I
was
mean,
the
people.
word.
It's no.
Right. And what Trump does is no great secret. I mean, we were at the State of the Union. I never heard anything like it. Attack you
Yeah.
personally, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
And say, these are the enemies. You're the enemies. It's not the opposition party. We respect, we work together. You are the enemies. You're insurrectionists. You're terrible people. And getting back to Chris's point, in my view, this is certainly about healthcare. God knows we talked about that. And it's about authoritarianism. This is a schoolyard bully. And if Democrats cave down, then all over this country people are saying we're scared to death. Who's going to stand up? But if we can rally the American people, and I know you have been active on October 18th, it's going to be maybe one of the largest demonstrations in the history of this country. If we can show the American people that this phony guy who is selling them out day after day wants to undermine what men and women in every one of our states has fought and died to defend, we win this thing, we can start turning the country around.
That's right. This is the patriotism of fighting back.
Yes.
That's right.
This is the moment to
That's-
fight back. Yes, yes. The part we're talking about is health care for millions of people, whether they're Democrats or Republicans or don't like any part of politics. But it's really about standing up and saying, we've had enough.
That's right.
We are not handing our country over to
Right.
someone who makes all his own decisions and thinks the only two functions of government are to enrich himself personally and use the tools of government to get back against what he thinks are his enemies.
That's right. And you know what? Bullies, he is not as strong as he wants people to think that he
Yeah.
is. Bullies are never as tough as they seem. And what gives me hope in this moment is how, one of the, is how Americans are looking at this and going, like, this is not for me.
Right.
Even if I voted for him, this is not for me. But all of us need to express that loudly. And the only insurrection that I've ever seen since I've been in the United States Senate was when Donald Trump inspired the insurrectionists to attack the United
right.
States Capitol to stop the free and fair election.
And then pardon all
and
those
then-
folks who
Then
beat up
pardon.
cops.
But
right?
but it's so important for us all to remember that he is not as strong as he wants us to believe
That's
that
right.
he is, and that we have so much more strength if we use our strength, if we use our power, and that is what this fight is about. in
Can I
this
follow
But I think on that, if I could,
Then Chris.
Can I follow up, Gino, quickly? Yeah, so I do think this is about democracy.
Right.
When Trump and Hegseth addressed those hundreds of generals and admirals, they said to them, we're going to practice for wars overseas in the cities of the United States. We're going to
Training
get
ground.
training here. We're going to get training in Portland, in Chicago, in Boston. We're going to get training for you. But you know what? I think we all can pretty much predict what the training is for. It's for Election Day in 2026, when those troops will be ordered into the inner cities of America, right by the polling places of minority groups in our country, to suppress the vote, to frighten those people from even going into the polling place in Atlanta, Georgia, in the cities of Cleveland, of Ohio, where these close elections are going to be
Well,
held.
they're
and
doing
to
it
try to
every
win
way
those
they
elections.
can. I mean, just, we had the hearing in judiciary, and of course, the Civil Rights Division that we're all so proud of, the crown jewel, the Justice Department was down there fighting for desegregation, enforcing Brown v. Board of Education, enforcing civil rights and voting rights laws in those days when if you were a black person, you had to be able to give the number of jelly beans in a big jar in order to get the ability to vote. Now it's all about suppressing the vote, and that's the prelude to militarization in the cities on election day. I mean, it's happening. That's what I think a lot of folks know, but everybody's got busy lives, and it's hard to believe. I mean, that is something I remember. January 6th, being in the house, and the mob was breaking the door down. The shot went off about 20 feet away, and I was scared, but I didn't believe it was happening. This is the United States of America. We have free and fair elections, and we accept the outcome of election. If we lose, we fight another day.
Chris,
yeah, I want to say that we're not on a path to authoritarianism. We are there. I mean, we are there right now. All the things that we're hearing about, cracking down on free speech, deploying troops to cities, using the Justice Department to go after political adversaries. I do want to go back to this point on bullies, because we do need to stand up to bullies. We need to do it individually and collectively. And, when my constituents ask me what they can do, I say that they can stand up, and they are standing up, and that is what No King's Day will be about. It is also important, though, that we call out those who cave in to this bully, because when you cave in, you just feed the bully. When you appease a dictator, you just increase their appetite. And especially these organizations that have the resources to fight, like law firms or universities,
Right.
when they cave in, they send a terrible message to everybody else. So I think,
Oh, you mean like the whole Republican Party?
well, yes,
In Congress?
they have totally,
No, they've
well, no, but they've I mean, they've contracted out their constitutional duties to Donald Trump. We know that. They're
Contracted out
rubber stamp-
body parts.
rubber stamps. But I think everybody in America has a role to play right now. Individuals can stand up. One of the reasons that you saw, the Trump back down and ABC back down on the Jimmy Kimmel case was because people started canceling their
that's right.
subscriptions to Disney Plus. Sinclair is in the state of Maryland. So even after they started airing Jimmy Kimmel in some places around the country, they were keeping him off the air until people protested, and Sinclair then reversed itself. But my point is that the natural inclination of a lot of these sort of financial interests is to go along, to appease the dictator, because they think at the end of the day, if they appease the dictator, that he won't come after them.
Right.
And the lesson for all of us is it will just put all of our rights at risk. So yes, we have to stand up individually, but let's also make sure that we call out those who are folding, because they put all of our rights
Good
at
for you.
risk.
Yep,
Let
that's
me,
right.
let me ask you guys this. We all know Republicans, and not every Republican is an authoritarian or a terrible person.
Right.
Conservative. Not against the law to be conservative. Why, with very few exceptions, I think somebody mentioned Tom Tillis decided that the beautiful bill would be a horror show for North Carolina, opposed it, 2 days later he was out of the race. Do we have any hope that some of these Republicans will say, you know what? I was elected by my constituents. I believe in the Constitution. I disagree with Democrats, but they're not my enemies. I'm not going to put them in jail. Are we hearing any of that, or are they? What's
So
going on?
little, and the question you're asking, the question I've been asking myself, when will some of our colleagues say, we took an oath to the Constitution, we understand what the basic freedoms are, we understand you don't militarize our streets with armies because people protest, and we understand you don't turn the Justice Department into a machine to attack people you disagree with, and say I've had enough.
Are you
I'm
hearing
saying
any of
no.
that, Jeff?
I am not hearing that, and it takes only a small number to start to say that. But I think about what I've heard from them in the past, especially during the first Trump administration, where Republican colleagues would say, Jeff, I disagree with Trump on so many things. I disagree with his ethics. I don't know how he got elected, but listen, my constituents watch the television station that says every night he's wonderful. He's doing everything perfectly. The cable television's on the right, so that they say my base that elected me, more than half of them are sold that the president's doing the right thing. And they don't hear about the issues we've been raising if you're watching that far-right cable or the social media that follows it. And this is a tremendous problem for our republic, for our democracy, different media worlds, and the separation of urban and rural. And there's no easy answer to this, but we have to keep trying to say we've got to be in this service to America for all Americans. For all districts, blue or red, all states, blue or red, and keep reaching out to our colleagues and having this conversation, because our country desperately needs a group of them to say they've had enough, they're going to honor their oath to the Constitution.
I think it's mostly up to the American people at this point,
Yeah.
because right now they fear Trump, but you got to put them in a position where they have to make a decision between Donald Trump or their voters.
Yeah.
Right. And
Right.
if their voters
That's exactly
if their voters say to him, listen, I've had enough of what's going on in Chicago, right? I don't accept authoritarianism.
They're gonna lose their health
You're going to
care.
lose. I'm going to lose my health care.
Yeah.
No, I'm not interested in you coming back again. Well, then you put him in a tough position, and I think that's starting to happen. But the size of the protests on, October 18th, and the ones that will come the week after that, and the week after that, that will matter, because Republicans are not destined to care only about Donald Trump's thoughts on them if their voters start to say,
That's
we'll
right.
watch him.
But we see maybe a little, the Congresswoman
right.
from Georgia, Green,
Yeah, Margaret Taylor Greene.
not exactly an ally of ours, right?
You wouldn't
Not
see her
usually.
sitting around this circle necessarily.
I don't
but
think so, but she was.
She was, yeah, that's
Did you,
right.
did you invite her?
I forgot to, maybe next.
She's not in town.
Well, here's what she says.
Yeah.
She
Yeah,
says,
that's
I have
right.
2 adult kids.
Yep.
Their premiums are going up 100%. They can't afford it. People in Georgia can't afford it. This is crap.
Yeah. Well, and today in Chicago, a masked ICE agent standing on a roof shot a rubber bullet at the head of a
Wow.
a person of faith, a minister, a pastor, who was praying.
Oh, God.
Really?
And this and
There's video.
Oh, good.
it's unbelievable, and I don't care what party you're in. I don't care what your political views are. As an American, you look at that and you go, "That is so wrong." And
Right.
I believe that people are I believe that people are going to rise up against that. I mean, that's as Chris says, it's going to come down to the people. Maybe because I'm an organizer at heart, and I believe that the power comes from the people and not from us. That is going to be what saves us.
Yeah,
Not
Chris-
us, but what saves our country.
Congress is a stimulus response institution, and there's nothing more stimulating than millions of people showing up on October 18th. And by the way, it might even be a good thing to have them all home on Main Street, which is turning into Payne Street, for
Right.
all of those voters back home. Because it's not the fear of God that moves Republicans and Congress, it's the fear of voters.
Right.
And the more that we fight on healthcare, the more that we fight on this issue that is on every single kitchen table all across the country. And again, we don't even raise Medicaid here, but they're cutting that by $1 trillion. It's 2/3 of all people in nursing homes, grandma and grandpa.
Right.
They're on Medicaid. Half of them have Alzheimer's. Nursing homes. They'd go home. They'd have to go home. They'd have to be living with the family because it's Medicaid that pays for it. I had a mother who's 78 tell me about her 50-year-old disabled son who's living with her. And it's on Medicaid. And she's just desperately worried about what can happen. So I think that these stories back home might actually start to get into this Republican senator or House member. That's our hope. But that's why we have to fight here. We have to keep raising this issue. We have
Keep
to
elevating.
keep this message high that the health care of every family is at
And
risk.
one thing this has done is given America a chance to focus on a single issue. Because when Trump came into office, from day one when he did, 50 edicts, if you will,
Right.
every single day, new issues and hugely different, and let's have a conversation about that terrible thing that happened yesterday. Well, there's 3 new issues. But for the moment, we have, through this shutdown, focused America on health care and on that the president has to actually follow the law when we pass a spending law. And so it does touch everyone. There's like 4 foundations for families to thrive: healthcare, housing, education, a good paying job. It's just essential to everyone. So this is a super important conversation to tackle the tactic that Trump has pursued of they want flooding the zone, new issues every single day, so you're always in chaos. So let's keep this attention and let's
Right.
improve healthcare.
I think if we call it the Trump healthcare tax credit. Because what we know at the end of the day for this president is it's all about him.
Oh, yeah.
It's not about the American people.
That's right. Maybe we can
And
do
it
a
is
Trump
about him and
coin.
his billionaire donors. So if it has to be called the Trump, healthcare tax credit to get it passed, maybe someone will break through to him.
I think Tina made a point a moment ago, is that what they want is the perception that they're all powerful. They cannot be beaten. Truth is, does Trump have political support? Sure he does. Is he particularly popular? No. Is his
Right.
popularity declining?
Yes.
It is.
Yes.
Are more and more conservative Republicans who voted for him say, gee, I didn't vote for you to double my health care premiums? Yeah. Are we
To shoot
seeing some
ministers.
breakaways? Yeah.
And they're not liking what he's doing.
That's right. All right.
That's right.
All right, so the point is, and what we are trying to do, is the American people are overwhelmingly on our side, including Republicans.
Yeah.
And it's just terribly important not only that the American people stand together on health care, on this issue of authoritarianism. A conservative Republican thinks that we should have people shooting rubber bullets into a minister, really, in America? No one hears that, all right? So we're gonna win this thing. We're gonna win this thing if we stay strong. That's us, that's the American people. On that note,
Let's do it.
thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Very good. Thank you.